Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast or media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, the Shark, and our special guest this week is Stormflame. Today is our 179th episode, and we're discussing the 1986/1996 EPCOT attraction, Universe of Energy, to start our first ever Jurassic July this year. So, let's get things started.
I have two things to say. First, in relation to this month, dinosaur, rawr. And then secondly, specifically for this episode, waiter, I'd like your finest plate of cringe with extra
Bill Nye the Science Guy, brought to you by Energy, and with our special guest star, Dory from Finding Nemo.
I didn't realize they shared the same actress. First time doing a ride here on the podcast.
Yep, well, we'll discuss more theme park attractions in the future, but for now we'll get to this one. Universe of Energy was originally called the Primeval World Diorama, which is a ride made by Walt Disney in the 1964 World's Fair. It was a ride that took you back to see the time of the dinosaurs, which are depicted with really amazing animatronics. Now, when Epcot Center opened up, a lot of the original rides from the World's Fair were brought there, including Universe of Energy. However, it wasn't just the simple going back to see the time of dinosaurs ride, because when they went over to Epcot, a lot of the rides were given corporate sponsorship, and Universe of Energy was Exxon's. The original Universe of Energy from the 80s still had the dinosaur animatronics, but the film that was around with it was mostly an industrial film about the oil industry. It was sedate, and upon watching it, a little bit dull. So if we were to do that one for this episode, it probably would have wound up being a little bit boring. However, they did not keep it as the same sedate film. In order to improve it in the 1990s, Disney decided to completely change the ride film, making it instead about Ellen Degeneres, someone who I'm sure will never be controversial in the future. I'm sure that she'll have a very long and successful career, but not a very successful career, as well as Bill Nye the Science Guy. Thankfully, this is made before his tragic hot air balloon accident, as seen in the documentary Smiling Friends.
Nice.
It is the two of them talking about energy, and the reason we're talking about this version compared to the original version is because this goes to some places. This one gets really weird. I guess Disney saw that the original Universe of Energy film was relatively sedate and tame and not overly exciting, and we're like, okay, let's just make it as weird as possible.
Yeah, if you're somehow able to outdo It's a Small World and Tomorrowland of all things, then I think you're doing quite an interesting job being even weirder than those two.
Yep, this is definitely one of the weirder attractions in Disney history, though thankfully it's not as bad as Superstar Limo, because that one was, if you've never heard of that ride, imagine the slowest moving ride possible through a bunch of cardboard cutouts and spitting image level caricatures of Hollywood celebrities, and yeah, it's not good. The show begins with Ellen greeting the guests in an area with 3 screens, which actually was from the original ride. She jokes about the audience being surprised to see her there, before mentioning how it would be weird to see me pop up in other places, like your car, then riffing on that for a bit. Ellen then says how the audience is surprised that she's a representative of the Universe of Energy, before she then says how there was a time that I could care less about energy, and she then snaps her fingers, bringing her to her apartment. We then see her talking to herself in the apartment, asking if she could share chips with herself, who retorts, "You're on a diet." Ellen is busy watching the game show Jeopardy, which, 3 things. Number 1, is actually more of a major part of this attraction than you would think of. Number 2, is not owned by Disney. And number 3, was definitely not owned by Disney at this time. So it kind of makes its inclusion definitely interesting.
Just give it time. Disney will absolutely acquire Jeopardy at some point. When that'll be, one can only wonder.
As Ellen is watching the game show, her neighbor, Bill Nye, comes in. There actually is a pretty funny joke here where Ellen says, and of course, no one ever locks their doors in New York. Bill Nye asks for items for an experiment, as Ellen notices that one of the contestants is Judy, her old college roommate. Judy is played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who is a really big get for a theme park attraction when you think about it, especially in 1996. This is just around the time she had a career comeback with Halloween H2O. Ellen remembers how she always called her roommate Stupid Judy, as Bill points out that she has a PhD and is a professor of energy. Ellen remarks, "Who cares about energy?" as Bill tells her how energy is the most important thing. Ellen says, "Sure, take her side," as Bill points out that he's not taking her side, but without energy, nothing would happen or exist, as she then quips, "We'd really be in jeopardy, wouldn't we?" Wah, wah, wah. Bill thanks her for the supplies and leaves, as Ellen mocks, "Stupid Judy, stupid energy," and then falls asleep on the couch. The original Ellen walks into the flashback and tells the audience that whenever somebody falls asleep in front of the TV, they have a dream sequence. At least she didn't fall asleep with the fridge door open. Then her entire apartment would have been frozen overnight.
Yeah, first of all, the correct soundtrack is bum, 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 bum. And second of all, for all our viewers listening in who are big fans of Zootopia, no, we are not referring to Judy Hopps from said franchise. We are referring to Judy, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. In case there's any confusion, we are terribly sorry.
And as I mentioned it before this, our guy fell asleep while making fun of electricity, so you know what kind of dream is coming. Just ask Jimmy, the guy who wanted a world without zinc.
Come back, Zinc, come back!
We're only about 4 or 5 minutes into this, and I think I speak for the entirety of modern society when I say, can Ellen Degeneres just please shut up?
Yep, she had Dory in Finding Nemo, she was good in that, but yeah, aside from that, I can definitely see where you're coming from, especially after watching this. Ellen then asks for fog to be placed in the apartment as the dream sequence starts up. In the dream, Ellen is on Jeopardy against Judy and Albert Einstein, which is funny and all, but missed opportunity here. The second contestant should have been Michael Myers, and all he does is just tilt his head, and he repeatedly tries stabbing at the podium. As Alex Trebek shows up, he then gives the categories, which are all about energy. Ellen picks the first category because, quote, "It's your nightmare," which she tries calling in the answer, but just stammers. Judy gets it right, as we then get a montage of her getting all of the other questions right. After the first round, Judy has over $10,000, Ellen has minus 100, and Albert Einstein has not rung in yet.
To quote Markiplier here, for Ellen, yeah, this is big brain time.
Ellen, in another funny joke, says, "Is this a nightmare or what?" As Alex says, "Ah, your first correct response, congratulations," and her score goes up back to 0, which, I'm sorry, that actually got a cute laugh out of me, not gonna lie. Ellen realizes that this is her nightmare and manages to stop it by snapping her fingers, walking through the frozen set. Bill Nye runs in through the set, as Ellen asks if he's here to help her, but he says he's here to meet Einstein. He then notes how poorly she's doing at the game, and she asks if he can help her. He says that they have to go back, as Ellen thinks he means backstage, but Bill says back billions of years. Ellen asks if they could pick up snacks, but Bill says that they don't have time and runs off. Ellen then appears again, telling the audience that, quote, "Now is for the time when somebody says that there's no eating, drinking, smoking, or flash photography," as a ride attendant then does so.
So it's pretty clear what their goal is and why they are going so far back in time. They are going to the first Thanksgiving to stop turkey from being in the menu. That's right, they are going to the first Thanksgiving to stop turkey from being in the menu.
Nice, nice. You then enter the main theater and enter the ride vehicles. Now, the ride vehicles were actually the same ones that were used in the MGM Studios ride, the Great Movie Ride, which I want to point out because both attractions close at the exact same ride, so this type of vehicle is now kind of extinct. Although the ride was sponsored by an oil company, these ride vehicles were powered by solar. The roof panels and the entire building were covered in solar panels, which managed to power the ride vehicles, which is really neat when you think about it, how that was really forward-thinking. The theater then goes dark as the ride continues.
First of all, extinct when we're talking about dinosaurs, the irony is not lost to us. And second of all, missed opportunity to have the vehicles be like another Disney ride involving dinosaurs, and also, to an extent, time travel, which, yeah, still clever that we got the vehicles from the MGM studio, so good on them, and also clever that both pretty much went down at the same time. But yeah, again, what could have been.
About the cars, I feel like there was going to be a joke about, "I'm not so fast and I squeak too much," given it was an oil company that sponsored this type of vehicle.
It could have actually been referencing that now that I think about it, except in this case the rides were deliberately meant to go slow. Kind of was similar to the original attraction, although I believe in there, The ride vehicles were more like the Haunted Mansion than anything else. Ellen then asks Bill why it is so dark as they're standing in a void. Bill points out a nearby point of matter, saying how all the energy in the universe is contained within it and has her place on ear protectors. He tries telling her that it's the Big Bang, as she can't hear him. Then he takes off her ear mufflers and tells her what it is. Ellen plays with the lights while Bill runs off before wondering where he is. He then opens a door and pulls her inside as the entire universe is created. And judging from where this door comes in, I didn't know he was in subcon the entire time.
Given this whole thing has a sitcom humor 65 million years ago, yada yada yada, can't remember the damn Big Bang theme song.
Our whole universe was in a hot, dense slate which nearly 14 billion years ago expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the Australs began to drool, Neanderthals developed tools, we built the wall, we built the pyramids, math, science, history, unraveling the mystery. It all started with a Big Bang Bang!
Yep, had to do it. As the universe is created, we then see a pretty good for 1996 film of the universe, the sun, and the earth all being created. This is really professional looking CGI. I am just really impressed with just how good it looks. And, considering it was 1996 and the ride closed in 2017, it held up pretty good. After we zoom into a jungle, we then cut to Bill and Ellen, with Bill dressed for safari. Now, these two are good and all in a vacuum in that, but I really don't think they were cut out to play Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler. I'm sorry. Bill says that there are 220 million years in the Earth's past, as Ellen asks if he could have just showed her this in a slideshow. Bill says that this is way more fun, as Ellen is confused as to where the energy is. Bill says that the plants and animals are soaking up energy from the sun, and that when they died, time managed to cook them into fossil fuels. Ellen asks if this means that we're powering our cars with dinosaur soup, as Bill explains no, but that dinosaurs lived in the same time as fossil fuels were developing. He then says that dinosaurs are just cool, which is the first statement we really can get behind on this attraction. You got that right. Bill then suggests to check out the dinosaurs, as Ellen asks, can't we go to the air conditioning and jacuzzi period? Bill retorts by saying that it's the chance of a lifetime. The chance of 100 million lifetimes, as we then cut to a really impressive looking matte painting of the prehistoric landscape. Like, this thing looks really impressive and just how imposing it is. Normally it wouldn't bring something like that up, but it looks really good. Ellen then says that Bill can go on without her, then suggests for the audience to go with him. She then hears a roar and runs off to join him, sarcastically remarking how they have brains the size of a pea, before seeing a dinosaur and nervously stammering out some jokes, which we are not going to repeat because they are not funny at all. She then runs off as the dinosaur follows her off screen, and it's here we get to the reason why we're discussing this ride, because the ride vehicles then go into the next room where we see a shot of Dawn with various sauropods in shadow. All of the animatronics in this sequence, except for one, which we'll get to in a little bit, all of the dinosaur animatronics are the original ones from 1964. I'm sorry, these look fantastic. Like, considering how old they were, I mean, even when the ride opened, they were over 20 years old, but you would never know that just by looking at them.
I gotta give props to the team for making some props from the 1960s look as good and as fitting as they are in this setting.
They definitely look like they're from the 60s. A lot of them are pretty outdated looks of dinosaurs. Pretty sure this is meant to be the Jurassic period. That would explain why we see sauropods and a stegosaurus. And I believe the theropod is meant to be an allosaurus, but it kind of looks like a T-Rex. And we have hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs. The animatronics are pretty good, but pretty outdated, in my opinion.
I definitely agree with you there. Also, another inconsistency, it should have been 200 billion, not 200 million.
This is one of the reasons that I advocate for physical media as much as I do. While they may look outdated for dinosaur designs because these were designed in the 60s, they still look amazing to see them in action. They are, weirdly enough, the best characters in this because, aside from one that's going to be mentioned, they don't talk.
For 1964, I think this was as scientifically accurate as you could have gotten back then, keeping in mind that paleontology, things change. even from like Jurassic Park to today, a lot of things have changed. So I think for the time the ride was open, it was probably as scientifically accurate as it could have been. I think it works out, and like I said, these things look absolutely amazing, which makes the fate of them all the more sadder, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I also love just how this begins. It's a shot of the dinosaurs in shadow just standing there, and then the lights slowly come on. Can you imagine being in the 1964 World's Fair and seeing this? It must have seemed like magic.
Yeah, that sounds like amazing.
The theater cars slowly move closer towards the dinosaurs as Ellen's voice asks for Bill. But as a roar is heard, she says, "You're not Bill. I mean, maybe your name is Bill, but you're not the Bill I'm looking for." As Bill Nye tells her to come on, Ellen runs towards Bill as the dinosaur animatronic part of the ride begins. The cars slowly move past the sauropods as, in a really cool touch, one of the dinosaurs actually breathes on you, which is done with kind of having a smoke effect in its head, which was actually also from the original ride. Not to sound like a broken record, but again, for 1964, that is some really impressive stuff that they managed to pull off.
Did not know that. That sounds amazing.
The cars then move towards a T-Rex fighting a Stegosaurus on a cliff, which is actually a really cool reference because this is taken directly from the Rite of Spring in Fantasia, and it actually was part of the original ride. That is something that is just such a clever reference that even if you've never seen Fantasia, it looks cool, but if you've seen the movie, that really is something neat that they put in. They didn't have to do it, but the fact that the Imagineers did do it is really something else.
Yeah, show of hands here. How many people immediately recognized that scene when they saw that moment in the ride?
Tree Tracheodon watched the fight as the cars continued to move. After going under a log, we then see 3 smaller dinosaurs drink from a pond. We then see a group of pterodons in their nest, as we then see an animatronic version of Ellen fighting off a plesiosaur with a branch. Was the only new animatronic that was made for this sequence. Ellen would later do a stunt on her show where she brought the animatronic on the show. Now I say the word brought in quotation marks because it was not the real animatronic. It was some hideous looking mechanical monstrosity that really looked just horrible. Now, some of the Imagineers who worked on the ride were really upset at this because they worked hard to make this ride and to make these animatronics, and then 20 years later she goes and makes fun of their work. Hey, yeah, look at this robot. Look at this stupid robot on this stupid corny Disney ride I was on. And then people were shocked that, oh wow, the whole thing of Ellen Degeneres being such a nicety nice person was all an act?
Yeah, and the whole reason she was trying to get that stick, you might ask? Bill, look! I found a stick! And a dinosaur! What'd you find? Oh, just some temporal residue from a time machine. Ooh, nifty. But wait, plus my stick and this dinosaur must mean that Lois traveled to the future! No, actually. This is from when Aladar was taken to the future. Oh, really? But we don't have time for that. It's time for energy! Oh, wait, what about Aladar? No time!
Yep. Surprised they didn't bring him in this, actually, but another pterodon caws at the guests while a volcano is erupting in the background. We then go inside of the volcano with a bunch of strobe lights flashing. The amount of time that we have the dinosaur animatronics is about 6 minutes, and this was the entire ride in the World's Fair. After this, the ride would go back to its station and you'd get out and, either get back online or do something else on the day. And like I said, just for that, if the ride just ended there, I could see it working out really, really good, but unfortunately for here, we still have another 15 minutes of it. And another thing to point out, these strobe light effects are really, really fast. I'm surprised they didn't have to slow it down for epileptic guests later on, because I'm actually surprised they got away with that. After the dinosaur animatronic portion of the ride, we then see a giant radio tower. And no, sadly, the radio tower is not going to start playing that classic song, "I Wrote This" by Patrick Starr.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's how the dinosaurs went extinct. They all heard that song and they lost their minds. Instead, the radio tower gives exposition in the form of radio broadcasts, like a fashion show saying about how mammals are getting furrier and growing saber teeth and antlers, as well as a weather report about the Ice Age receding. We then get back to the film, as Ellen swings on a vine before Bill stops her. Ellen talks about how it's not like I enjoy being attacked by a snake-like creature before Bill interrupts her, saying how this is the dawn of the human era where man created fire. A caveman, played by Michael Richards, who probably is best known for being Kramer on Seinfeld, climbs a cliff when lightning strikes his club, creating fire. And obviously, we know what's going to happen next. It's going to cut back to the apartment. Jerry, I'm telling you, this fire thing is going to be huge. Oh yeah, this can't miss. The caveman instead freaks out and throws it down, while another one approaches it. And it's at this point I realize something. This part is basically just the plot of SpongeBob BC, aka Ugg, which, sadly, we do not get to see Patchy, Potty, Cavey, and the robot all rap when worlds collide.
Fire, fire, fire! Yeah, basically this was all just the Team Fortress 2 red and blue team getting sent back in time for one of Greyman's ever ludicrous stunts, per usual.
We then see a montage of man evolving through the ages, which is actually really cute. They do it in kind of a paper cutout style that is really a neat bit of animation. I actually like how they did that. We then see Bill and Ellen in a helicopter. As Bill explains, that's what brought them to today. Ellen says that she's ready to get back to Jeopardy, as Bill says that's not enough, that she needs to know more about energy and that it's a big story. Ellen tells the audience, "You heard the man," and pushes the screen out wider as she jokes that she sounds like a dentist, which, could that possibly have been foreshadowing for a later role of hers where she fought against a dentist? Most likely not, but it's a fun joke to make.
At this point, we are very clearly seeing that the best parts of this ride are the visuals and when Bill Nye is just nerding out on science stuff. The worst part is when they try to do this story thing that they've shoehorned into this, and it is just god-awful. I actually do question why we couldn't just have had a full-on science ride. We're at EPCOT for Pete's sake. That's their shtick.
Yeah, the ride originally was just a science ride. It was literally just about how oil was made and harvested and stuff like that. But I guess in the 90s, Michael Eisner thought, oh, it's not hip enough for the kids. So he decided to do this, and
whoever sponsored this ride was a really big fan of sitcom, because there's a lot of that in this whole ride. The humor, some of the actors, maybe they thought, oh, let's make a sitcom style story for this ride instead of teaching people about energy. That would make it more successful.
But then we wouldn't get to see Ellen DeGeneres give one up on Jamie Lee Curtis. So, I mean, if nothing else, they were able to accomplish that with this ride.
Bill says that they'll start with the sun, as we cut to a shot of the sun rising that I am 99% positive is taken from the movie Phase 4, which is not Phase 4 of the MCU. This is a 1970s movie about killer ants. That is actually way better than it sounds, so if you haven't seen it, check it out. Phase 4, directed by Saul Bass. It's a pretty good time. We then see a shot of solar panels, as Bill points out that solar panels converts the sun's energy to electricity, as Ellen jokes, cool, I mean hot. Then asks why don't they use solar everywhere. Bill points out because it's not sunny everywhere, and that solar can be expensive, which is definitely a sign that this was made in the 90s, because it's not anymore. They then go to a wind farm with giant turbines, as Ellen asks why they don't just use wind power everywhere. Bill says that they're starting to, but to power a city, you need a lot of turbines, as we cut to a bunch of them in the water by a city. Ellen says when the wind stops blowing, you'd be left in the dark, as the city lights and all turns off. Bill says that they can use another type of resource. This is how the ride definitely is dated, because it talks about solar energy and wind energy as if they're relatively new things, and as someone who has taken many trains from my home to Barcelona, I'm sorry, there are so many wind turbines dotting the landscape, it's insane. It's just fascinating, I guess, how much has changed since this ride film was made compared to today, in both good and, as we'll see later, bad ways.
As somebody who lives in the UK, who are mainly people who like using green energy, and I've seen plenty of air turbines around here. Like, my neighbor has a solar panel across the street, so that took me out for a bit, and oh, this is definitely a 90s thing. Why are they talking like it's a new invention of mankind?
We then cut to the camera soaring through a lake, as Ellen wonders if the mountain will give them energy. Bill says no, but the hydroelectric electric plant will as you then zoom up towards it. Bill then asks her one of the questions as Ellen is just about to answer it, but water falls on her, with her angrily noting that the answer is rain. She then asks if dams are the way to solve an energy problem. Bill says no, and then he just walks off as, and probably the funniest joke of the ride, Ellen instantly pulls her fist back like she's gonna start beating the hell out of him for being so evasive, which, I'm sorry, that actually was probably her funniest moment just because, number one, it doesn't involve her talking. Number two, it's just something about the timing of that moment that really works.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't mind her talking, but it's definitely funny still, but given nowadays, that would be a lot less funny.
Yeah, knowing what we know about her today, I don't think that was a joke. I think that that's something that actually happened while recording, and they just kept it in thinking it was a joke.
Yeah.
They not only travel into the past, they travel into the future and knew what was gonna happen and made a joke about that.
They then walk alongside the dam, as Bill explains how the dam can mess up a local ecosystem. They then fly over the dam, as Bill explains how it currently, or at least currently for 1996, provides 10% of the world's energy, but there will be more to come in the future. Ellen asks some more questions as we cut to a series of trains. Ellen realizes that's coal, as Bill points out how we have 2 centuries worth of it. Ellen then asks about global warming, as Bill says, and this is a direct quote, "It's a very hot topic with a lot of unanswered questions," which, yeah, is definitely the most dated line of the ride because, let's just say, things are a lot different from 1996 compared to 2026. So, yeah, unfortunate.
This is why I'm dealing with a heat wave here, and felt like, this was definitely written by a big oil company that didn't want to hear the truth.
Yeah, in that regard, though, this is less dated than you think, since, like, you may think it's not an issue nowadays, but here in the good old US of A, it takes on a different name, and it is very much still an issue, if you'll recall.
Bill then mentions how they're trying to make coal more efficient, before we then cut to a natural gas plant. Bill asks Ellen about gas as she jokes, "I can always get you some club soda," as Bill then explains how they have 60 years of natural gas left. Ellen is shocked at this, as Bill says that they're always finding more, and this is a great ride and all, but what they should have done, they should have gone all the way to Turkmenistan to see that giant natural gas crater that the Soviets set on fire in the 1960s, and it's still on fire today.
I mean, it's hard to get gas out of that thing when it's always on fire.
Ellen is driving a cart during this part and nearly runs over a worker before we then cut to an oil field. Ellen quotes the Beverly Hillbillies theme, but then realizes that it's oil. Bill says that's their main source of energy and they have enough for 50 years, and that was 30 years ago, so clock's ticking, people. Ellen is shocked at this, as Bill says they have other ways of getting it. We then cut to the two of them in space, as Bill explains that satellites are used to find hidden oil deposits. Ellen gets stuck on a satellite and floats away, but hey, could have been worse. It could have been like the movie Gravity. Bill explains that all of the easily findable oil deposits have been taken, so they have to find deeper ones. We cut to them flying towards an oil rig, and Disney, you can't fool me. This is a crossover with Armageddon. We're gonna see Harry on that oil rig chasing AJ with a shotgun. "Harry, your daughter, I love her." Way wrong answer. Bill says that oil is on the ocean floor, as Ellen says that they can't get to it and to move on.
I don't know why, but when I heard that particular thing, like, I just immediately got the mental lyric, "Carry on my wayward son, there'll be oil when you are done."
Bill says that they can reach the oil with offshore drilling platforms as they then go into the water. Bill explains that some platforms are so large, they're actually taller than the Empire State Building, as we see this shown underwater. We cut to them in a bathysphere, as Ellen notes a shark and tells Bill to go up before they get attacked. Possibly them digging at their competition of Universal Studios, which had a Jaws attraction right next door? We can only speculate.
I don't know why Ellen is so upset about seeing this shark. It's just Bruce, and he believes that fish are friend, not food.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think he will make an exception with her.
Fish are friends, but nobody said anything about humans, now did they?
And while we're here, this was actually a good way of displaying the technology that was in development and being used of the day, because as was said earlier, we only have at the time of the recording of that, about 50 years of oil left that we knew about. Because of all of these offshore oil drilling platforms and other advances in technology, as they were saying in this, we're actually still at about 50 years. So in the 30-year time span, we have added 30 years.
Huh, I did not know that. Good to know. Good to know. We then cut to a bunch of atoms, which, weirdly enough, look eerily like the Jimmy Neutron intro. Sadly, we do not get to see Jimmy saying "Got a blast" because, as we all know, Jimmy Neutron was at Universal Studios, not Disney World, sadly. Ellen asks where are they, as Bill explains that they're in atomic energy and shows her how nuclear fission works. He explains how nuclear energy can be expensive and is highly controversial, like the TV show The Simpsons that we'll probably own in 30 years. Oh, wait a minute.
I think the only reason it's controversial is because the Hulk was visiting next door. Hulk does not like be reminded of nuclear energy. Hulk smash nuclear reactor.
As the film then zooms into the sun, Ellen asks if there's ever going to be an answer, as Bill tells her that despite any other power, brain power can never run out, as one day maybe mankind can unlock the power of the stars. Ellen says that she sees the light, as Bill quips that it's actually double jeopardy.
Brain power can never run out. This is complete and total fiction, and I can prove it. Just look at this podcast.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. We cut to her back on the Jeopardy set, as an assistant asks where she was. Ellen begins explaining about the adventure she had, before saying that she was in the restroom. She is brought back to the set, where Judy talks about how we always called her Stupid Ellen. The show begins again with the second round Double Jeopardy, as Ellen picks dinosaurs for 800. Judy says that the more expensive questions are harder, as Ellen then picks dinosaurs for 1,000, and no, sadly the round is not about the ABC sitcom dinosaurs, which would have been a very fun crossover. Ellen manages to get the question she is given, and all of the other questions in that round correct, to Judy's increasingly shock. After the round, she ends up tying with Judy, as Judy accuses Ellen of cheating, only for Alex Trebek to tell her to shut up. As Einstein has $0, he cannot play Final Jeopardy and is escorted off the set. He gets a consolation prize of a year's worth of energy, a light bulb, and coffee in the back room. Einstein was rigged. He knew all the answers, but they unplugged his buzzer so he couldn't ring in. This show was rigged. Hashtag justice for Einstein.
Hey, at least the consolation prize here is better than the ones in Legends of the Hidden Temple. Wow, you got second place? Here's your can of tuna.
Trebek says that Final Jeopardy is the future of energy, with the question being, this is the one source of energy that will never run out.
Yeah, if they did this kind of thing to someone like Vegapunk or Ishigami Senku, I'm pretty sure those two would find a way to rewire the button, or at least Senku would make another button and find a way to ultimately make it like something new and something completely out of left field that no one would ever assume would be associated with it. Yeah, it's probably just going to be Senku doing that, but...
As the vehicles go back to the original theater it started in, the Jeopardy announcer says that if you would like to have your own energy nightmare, write us a letter and put it under your pillow, or visit us online at www.energynightmare.game. Sadly, I checked. That is not a real website. Come on, Disney! You could have had free marketing for years because of that. The announcer says that all contestants will receive a year's supply of energy, so Einstein really got shafted there. We then go back to the original theater as we find out what the contestants answered. It turns out that Judy put down absolutely nothing for her response, saying that there is no source of energy that will not eventually run out. Alex says that she's wrong, as it turns out Judy pulled a very rookie move not seen since Cliff Clavin from Cheers. She bet absolutely everything, which brings her score down to nothing. Ellen writes what is brain power, which is correct, and she also bet everything, which makes her the official winner. Yep, kind of a rigged show, not gonna lie. I mean, it is an energy nightmare. But
honestly, the same result would happen if Ellen Degeneres went up against Grunkle Stan. He'd bet it all, and the final word would ultimately have to be like something polite, which he is against.
balloon and confetti fall down as everybody cheers for Ellen, with Judy looking annoyed at this. And as someone who has watched Jeopardy many, many times, no, they do not have balloons and confetti fall down every show because, yeah, that would be a real pain in the neck for the people to clean up. So I guess energy nightmares work differently. The original Ellen walks into frame and turns off the screen, as she says that's how she became an energy expert, then warns the crowd about a dinosaur. A dinosaur roar is heard off screen, as when this ride originally opened, this is where the Exxon screen premiered, but later on when Disney lost the sponsorship, it just showed a blank screen, so kind of interesting there. Universe of Energy lasted for over 30 years, generally because it was a longer ride that had a lot of capacity. The rides typically were around 35 minutes, and because it was air-conditioned, it was very popular in the summer months of Florida.
Makes sense. I would do the same, to be honest.
On the last ride of it ever, they actually did a really sweet thing. They stopped the ride in the dinosaur section, so guests who rode it got to get out of the ride and take close-up pictures and video of all of the dinosaur animatronics. I'm sorry, say what you will about Disney as a corporation and this and that. That is a really nice thing to do, to actually let everybody on the final day take as many pictures with the dinosaurs as they wanted.
Oh, man, I wish I was there. I would take so much pictures.
The ride itself was replaced by a Guardians of the Galaxy themed roller coaster in 2017, which, much like Sheen's replacement of Jimmy's public access show, was proudly presented with no science. Sadly, it did not have puppets talk about giant worms, but it did have some pretty cool animatronics of Star-Lord and Groot and Gamora, as well as giant planet projections, which are pretty cool. Sadly, the dinosaur animatronics no longer exist. They were stripped for parts for other animatronics, which really feels like a shame to me because these animatronics were almost 50 years old by the time the ride closed, and to just get rid of them like that feels like an insult. They couldn't have made like a little museum nearby the ride where you could at least see the really cool dinosaur animatronics. It's like, we're getting rid of them. You'll never see them again, which they also did the same thing for a previous thing we discussed in the podcast, which is Disney's dinosaur over at Animal Kingdom. All the animatronics in that ride have allegedly also been stripped for parts, which the amount of work that it takes to make these and to make them look so good. And again, for being from 1964, these things look like they really haven't aged a day since then, and the way they move and the way they look.
That's kind of very sad to hear about, and especially since what Ellen did later to mock them on her own show, so that's a very sad way for them to go. I won't mind somebody buying one of those things and keeping it for themselves. At least they will be preserved, not stripped for parts, and Disney will have money back to make more animatronics, but at least they recycle.
I honestly think that if not this ride, that the ride Aladar was on should absolutely have the same thing happen. Have the animatronics be preserved and be kept as a reminder of what ultimately was and what could be in the future for a series like Dinosaur. You aren't going to get something like that particular ride ever again, especially with something like Encanto coming in and being Encanto.
Yep. Go ahead, Math.
I understand why they stripped them down for parts, because keeping in storage animatronics, especially of this size, would be extremely expensive. So I get it. I really do. Having said that, why don't you just make sort of like a Madame Tussauds museum, but with animatronics? People love seeing physical media like this. They really love animatronics. We see this with the Hall of Presidents that they have. You can make an entire ride or an entire area of just animatronics and people will go. So why not just do something like that? Effectively get the cost of maintaining and housing the things out of ticket sales.
Perfect. You took the words right out of my mouth there. I've always said they should have had like a museum for rides that are defunct to actually showcase some of these really impressive animatronics, but sadly they do not do that for the most part.
It was probably they thought, nobody's going to see these rides in a museum. Let's just strip them from parts. It'd be cheaper.
That's going to lead to the question of the week, which is, what is your favorite revamp of media? I'll go first, and for my answer, it's going to be something a little bit different. It's probably something that I've actually answered with before, but I feel it actually fits for the purposes of this question. Mine is going to be the Planet of the Apes trilogies made in the 2010s and 2020s. Started out as, believe it or not, an independent project about a man's pet that goes haywire and then shenanigans ensue. Now, upon writing the script writer realized, hey, this sounds a little bit like Planet of the Apes. Went to 20th Century Fox with this script, who, surprisingly enough, they liked it so much, they basically said, yeah, sure, you could use our huge franchise with your script, which this so rarely happens that it's amazing. But why it works as a revamp is because it's kind of a soft reboot of the franchise in a way. It shows the beginning of the Planet of the Apes, how the apes gain intelligence and humanity slowly died out thanks to a virus. It shows them slowly taking over society and becoming more and more evolved human-like, while still keeping them more like apes, especially compared to the original series, where the apes are basically just humans with furry faces and fur on their knuckles. Here, they still visibly are monkeys, chimpanzees, and orangutans, and gorillas, and they actually did a really good job with it. It not only is kind of a reboot of the series and how it is a lot more serious and a lot more violent compared to the original, and the effects work by Andy Serkis and his team are just top-notch, really, really impressive stuff. It also is a continuation of the original, because in the first Planet of the Apes reboot, we actually see on television the launch of the Icarus ship, which had Charlton Heston, Taylor, and the rest of his crew on it as they go into a time warp. I just find that so cool. They didn't have to do that. They could have been like the Mark Wahlberg version, where it was like total reboot, nothing to do with the original at all. We're going to have Abraham Lincoln at the end, and it's not going to make sense, but you'll go and see it anyway. They actually tied it to the original movie. I really like how they did that, because it's something that they didn't have to do, but the fact that they did is very much appreciated. It's also interesting seeing different versions of characters like Nova. Overall, I think it's just such a fantastic series of films that it doesn't replace the original Planet of the Apes movies, but it definitely serves as a fantastic companion piece and a revamp of them. It takes the basic premise of Planet of the Apes and brings it in the modern setting, and they really are all just amazing. This is a fantastic science fiction series. I dare say Planet of the Apes might have more better movies than Star Wars, and I do say that. Angron, what would your pick be?
This one definitely took a fair bit of thought, but I think I have one that not a lot of people were really going to be expecting. Normally, I would go to some of my old favorites like Godzilla for a revamp from there, going from the original series to like something like the Monsterverse, which is still considered canon, thankfully. I think for this one, I'm going to do an out-of-the-box pick and pick something along the lines of Kamen Rider. This one is going to be Kamen Rider Black Sun to Kamen Rider Black Sun RX. Yeah, it's a sequel series, but it was at this point in particular where the series thus far had been pretty light, but still stuck to its usual beats of like being Kamen Rider, just a hero of justice on a badass motorbike. And then we get to RX. It's after battling the enemy organization, and this guy has been booking it alone, and it has been quite a journey for him. I haven't seen all of the series. I've just seen the movies and whatnot involving this guy, but that much of a radical jump and a change of tone made for an interesting pick for this series, that's for sure. So I am going to pick that as my favorite revamp. Yeah, I'm also going to stick with the Godzilla the Monsterverse pick as well, just to be on the safe side as well, since huge Godzilla fan, and also Monsterverse Godzilla, best Godzilla in my opinion.
Yep, I can definitely see why, because again, it's another reboot of a hugely popular franchise that really works out for the best in that case. Let's see, Matt, what would your pick be?
I wanted to go with a more modern choice for a series to show that it actually can be done well. It's rare for especially animated series, but it actually can happen. King of the Hill. So I have to explain this one a little bit for why it's a revamp rather than just a reboot continuation. Because they have advanced the setting about a decade in time. They've changed things up heavily. It used to be a show about Hank, the working man, and Bobby, everyday life situations. Those are the way the episodes were typically structured. They have now flipped it so that Hank is the everyday man because he's retired and Bobby is the working man because he owns his own restaurant. That is a nice way to change things up. We see from the same characters that we've grown up with and associated with for so long, completely opposite perspectives. And that helps change the show up in such a drastic way that while still being a continuation of the old show and having all of the old characters that we associate with the show, it actually does feel new and fresh.
Like I say, I like out-of-the-box answers like that because, again, King of the Hill is one of those shows that it really doesn't have any bad episodes or bad seasons, which is really impressive considering how long it's been running. See The Simpsons, see Family Guy, see South Park et al. What you said makes perfect sense there because I just feel like Mike Judge really gets it because when you look at all of his work and how he's brought them back, they really click. You know, it's really impressive how he managed to do it not once, but twice.
And a little bit of a bonus here. As of the time of the airing of this episode, the next season will be airing in just 2 weeks. So get ready for that, folks.
That'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see more of that. Let's see. Shark, what would your pick be?
So this one was a bit tricky, like trying to find out what exactly counts as a revamp. Kind of figure like, well, if it's like a retelling of a already existing piece of media, I guess adapting a book to a movie kind of comes into this department, so that kind of make it a bit easier. So I was just thinking like thing that started as a book that became a movie or a show I really enjoy, especially compared to the original. And I came to an interesting decision, which is the Bad Guys movies. Like, for those who don't know, which I honestly think it's none of you, but still, yeah, the Bad Guys were originally a book series, popular enough to get fans, but you know, the movies were definitely the whole series really exploded in popularity. I actually like some of the things that they kind of adapted, like they changed it for better. The books already kind of sort of start with the Bad Guys already wanted to be better, like, oh, from not chapter 1, but from really the beginning, it's like they were already like not happy with their lives. Like the movie kind of does a better job like showing you how they actually did enjoy being like the villains, the bad guys, and in the middle point is when they actually have like their dubs. You actually see like that character development rather than with the characters already started like in not the good side, but they were not completely evil at the start. And there were like some really good changes with like the, you know, some of the characters that, for example, Miss Tarantula in the book was not only a guy, but they were already like redeemed. It's kind of like them who wants to make the other bad guys like good guys. They're the one who kind of joins them to the whole seminar thing to become better. So no, that's actually a nice change that female representation and all of that. Even the design was like better in the movies where she's like a centaur there. And yeah, other stuff like bad words as well were already like redeemed by the point we made in the book. The movies kind of introduced them as antagonists as well. So cool how some of the characters like go from the path from thieves, bad girls, bad guys to actually redeeming themselves, so that's a fun. Agent Vixen, that is what eventually became Diane Foxington. Of course, the revamps gave us Diane Foxington, so with that, it's like, yeah, this is a bonus. So, yep, those movies are gonna be my answer for this week.
That's a great pick because, again, that's one of the things I think really brought DreamWorks back on the map. Man, they are just such great, great movies, and I hope we get Bad Guys 3 sooner than later, and when we do that, it has more Diane, wink, wink. Seriously, they are just such fantastic, well-made movies. The animation style is great, the acting is great. It's all just really so impressive.
In many ways, I prefer those movies over Puss in Boots: Last Wish and The Wild Robot. I mean, no diss to those movies, they're pretty amazing, some of the best DreamWorks ever made, but yeah, I am 100% for what DreamWorks did with the Bad Guys, hands down. Here's hoping Bad Guys 3 ends up being as good as the previous two.
Yep. So, let's see. Stormflame, what would your pick be?
I've been thinking about it since we discussed it from last week but I think I'm going to a revamp between the original Jurassic Park book and the movie. This is going to be a bit of a controversial thing, but I don't actually like too much of the book. I'm going to say it now. I think the movie did it better. Well, it doesn't take too freaking long to get to the island, and after that compy scene and the baby, I actually put down the book because I was in shock that was even a thing. Well, and I don't like that version of John Hammond being a evil grandfather who cares about his money over his own. I like the other one from the films, because that just seems like a better way to portray a rich guy than the typical evil, greedy man. And also, from what I heard, I never finished the book, Rex and the other kid, Timmy, were not good characters. I think Michael Crichton had a thing for hating children, because he betrayed Rex wanting Alan to give her a piggyback ride while he had a broken leg. So yeah, that's going to be my pick. Jurassic Park movie is better in the book, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. And don't worry, we'll be talking a little bit more about Jurassic Park in this month, possibly, wink, wink. But like I say, Jurassic Park, the book, it's not bad, at least I don't think. It's just very different compared to the movie. And pretty much all the changes Spielberg made to the book was definitely for the better. I don't think the movie would have become as iconic or as beloved or a franchise, although that last thing might not be a good thing, if it stuck directly to the book. Because when you adapt something from a book to a movie, you have to make certain changes, and the ones he did there worked out a lot better.
Yeah. I feel like if the fans want the book adapted accurately, like a reboot of Jurassic Park, he's going to like it, or are going to hate John Hammond and going to compare him to the original movie, so he's too evil and greedy, which the Jurassic Park franchise has already done that to death. Well, the Jurassic World.
Now it is time for the patent-pending Dragoness Scale, where we're going to rank the dinosaurs from Universe of Energy. I'll go first, and okay, personality, there really is nothing to say here. They don't talk, they act more like normal, average dinosaurs than anything else, so personality-wise, not much. With that being said, the fact that these guys are from 1964, and they look so good, they move so realistically, and the fact that they lasted for over 50 years without having to change that much, I am going to give them a higher score than they probably deserve of an 8 out of 10. Just because mechanically they're really well done. The Fantasia reference is a huge plus for me, at least, because I love that movie, and it's always good to see more of it. And overall, I just feel like if the Universe of Energy ride did not have all the energy stuff behind it, if it was just, we're going to take you back to the world of dinosaurs to see these cool dinosaur animatronics, I think the ride would still be there today if they did not have the 25-minute movie wrapped around this 5 minutes of really cool dinosaur animatronics. I feel like, again, if it was just the animatronics, we'd still be able to go on it today. For me, it's going to be 8 out of 10 because they're not just mechanically well done. What they represent is pretty good. I'm not going to lie. So let's see. Angron, what are you going to give them?
Yeah, for my ranking, on the one hand, they're not completely terrible. They are just, on the one hand, they're acting like dinosaurs. They're pretty impressive despite being from an era that was like 20 or 30 years before this. And the fact that they're still functioning and the upkeep and is pretty nice, and the fact that they're tied in to the ride in general and the overall story, which I personally didn't hate, could do a lot worse. On the other hand, not even the whole Fantasia reference isn't exactly gonna disguise the fact that they're, just giant monsters. They're not terrible by any means. They're doing a good job of presenting what they ultimately are and what this is all about. They're talking about energy and the origins of energy to an extent. Sadly gonna have to say that stuff like The New Adventure has done this sort of thing a bit better without being educational and without being in your face about it. They absolutely have dinosaurs in your face for sure, but when it comes at the cost of being educational in that sort of regard, then unless you're dinosaur trained, it's sadly not going to be enough to give them anything but a 7 out of 10. They're not bad, they do their job pretty well, but they're just dinosaurs without too much personality. We're all about personality on this podcast. So, I mean, there is some with like the Parasaur and Ellen, but otherwise, that's honestly about it. So I'm going to go with a 7 out of 10, yeah.
Okay, I can see why. Let's see, Matt, what would you give them?
Say it with me, folks. Giant monster!
Monster!
These are just animatronics of dinosaurs. They have no dialogue, they have no personality, they have no nothing. So normally this would be just a 5 and I'd call it a day. But this actually has two things going for it that surprised me when I watched it. First, the fact that they look as good as they do and as authentic to the era that they were made as they are. is really impressive, especially considering how old they are. I will say it again, a reason I always advocate for animatronics and physical media, because you can make wonders with that shit. This looks so much better than if they had CG'd in some crap, especially for 96. And the second reason, and I didn't think this was going to be a thing that helped them, but apparently it was, they don't fucking talk, because we didn't have to deal with dinosaurs making stupid Ellen quips. That actually made them a lot more tolerable than anything else in this, and they were the best characters by far because of that. Largely because I am actually impressed with how good these things are, more than the they didn't talk part. I'm bumping what would normally be just a 5 up to a 7.
Like you said, they really are just so impressive as well. And like you said, the fact that they don't talk definitely helps out here. So let's see, Shark, what would you give them?
It has been pointed out, well, they are giant monsters, they have no personality, they're not dinosaurs, but I think it kinda works in the context of, well, this ride, after all. They really are not the star. In fact, they're not even the main characters, Bill Nye and the others are. And the whole idea is that you're traveling through time, so it kinda makes sense why they are not, like, big main thing here. Even though, like, man, these are impressive, especially for the time. Like, the whole animatronics are great, and as pointed out all the way back into the recording of the episode, I can just imagine like the people in the ride when they enter the room and the whole reveal of the dinosaurs, seeing these big things, it would have been so great. And yeah, I mean, for what they are, part of a ride, they had a lot of effort, and these animatronics were so well made. They lasted a lot of time, as we mentioned. They do last like the first share amount of time in the ride. It's not like, oh, they're just gonna be here in one room for 3-4 minutes and move on to the next timer. And no, they really memorable. So even though they don't have personality and other stuff, I think they did their job well enough to get an 8 out of 10 from me.
Ooh, nice to see, nice to see. So let's see, Storm, what would you give them?
They're just pretty minor in this ride, and when I first watched the video about this ride, not knowing about anything about it before, they feel like I'm going to rank them on their row on this ride, and they did a pretty good job of that, being the best part of the ride. They are a bit outdated for my tastes for dinosaurs designs, but I do like they are indeed physical, which is a rarity with dinosaurs. Now, the fact they lasted so long, I'm going to give them a very generous rank rate of 9 out of 10. Maybe because this is my first time rating a ride on this podcast, but 9 out of 10 out for me.
All good, all good. And wow, yeah, really high scores, higher than I actually expected for this ride. I guess it just goes to show how well these animatronics held up, and sadly they are no longer with us, but they really just are so impressive. I think this actually is the highest ranking any ride has gotten so far, which we've only done a couple of them, but still. That's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions, or if you want to see even more badass dinosaur animatronics, feel free to email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us at Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Visit us at Blue Sky at Blue Sky Fiery Discourse. Subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel, and like and hit the bell icon. Leave a comment. Any all comments are appreciated. Next week, we are going to be talking about the 2002 Nintendo GameCube game, Star Fox Adventures, to continue Jurassic July this year. And no, sadly, Crystal cannot be ranked on the Dragoness Scale, because if she was, she'd get a perfect score sweep, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
But regardless, there still might be some very good characters to talk about with that. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and take care.
Later, y'all.
Bye.
Peace out.
Adios. See you all next week.